Chapter 2, Section 1, the Fertile Crescent. The land that stretched in an arc from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf had many attractions to the people of the ancient world. We're going to get to know this land by completing a few following activities. If you were to build 3 cities in the region shown on the map here, where would you locate them? Would you put one here, here, here? What makes these locations good places to build a city? Think about that. Pause and think about that for a few minutes. Protecting yourself against invaders. Which areas might attract invaders? Why? How could people living in these areas protect themselves from invaders? Once again, pause, think about it, and discuss. The land between 2 rivers. What is the land like where you live? Is the area flat, hilly, or mountainous? Does it have any deserts, lakes, rivers, or cities nearby? What in the geography of the area do you think attracted people to first settle in your community? Questions to think about throughout this section. How did the geography of Mesopotamia make this a likely area for the rise of civilization? And what was it like to live in a Sumerian city? Key terms for the section will be scribe, city-state, polytheism, and myth. Key places to understand are Sumer, Mesopotamia, Fertile Crescent, Tigris River, Euphrates River.
My headmaster read my tablet and said, "There is something missing," and hit me with a cane. The fellow in charge of silence said, "Why did you talk without permission?" and caned me.
These words from the past come from a student at one of the world's first schools. He told what happened to him when his homework was sloppy or when he spoke without permission. Punishment was severe. The first known schools were set up in the land of Sumer over 4,000 years ago. Sumerian schools taught boys, and a few girls, the new invention of writing. Graduates of the schools became professional writers called scribes. Scribes were important people in Sumer because they were the only people in the land who could keep records for the kings and priests. Learning to be a scribe was hard work. Boys normally began school at the age of 8 and didn't finish until they were 20. The language on this clay tablet you're looking at is Sumerian, and it is the oldest known written language. The geographic setting of the Fertile Crescent. As you can see on the map, Sumer was located in a region called Mesopotamia. Sumer, and the region is Mesopotamia. Like the place you live, ancient Mesopotamia had special attractions that drew people to settle there. Most important to the people, it had rich soil and life-giving rivers. The attractions drew people who became farmers and city builders. Sumer's central location within the ancient world drew many traders. Sumer became one of the most prosperous areas of the ancient world. The location of Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia's name describes its location. The word Mesopotamia comes from the Greek words that mean between 2 rivers. This map shows that Mesopotamia lies between 2 rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Mesopotamia is a part of a larger area that is called the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent shown on this map shows how the region got its name. Place your finger at the eastern edge of the Mediterranean. Then move eastward from the Mediterranean coast to Mesopotamia. Then move south to the Persian Gulf. Notice that the region you've traced is shaped like a crescent moon. The rivers of this crescent-shaped region made it one of the best places in Southwest Asia for growing crops. Rivers of life and death. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers were the source of life for the peoples of Mesopotamia. In the spring, melting snow picked up tons of topsoil as it rushed down from the mountains and flooded the land. The floods left this topsoil on the plain below. Farmers grew crops in this soil. The river also supplied fish, tall, strong reeds used to make boats, and clay for building. The floodwaters sometimes brought sorrows as well as gifts. The floods did not always happen at the same time each year. Racing down without warning, they sometimes swept away people, animals, and houses. Then the survivors would slowly rebuild and pray that the next flood would not be so destructive. The first cities. As farming succeeded in Mesopotamia, communities began to have surpluses of food. In time, food surpluses encouraged the building of cities. By 3500 BC, Mesopotamia had a number of growing cities in the region of Sumer. People coming to these cities were probably amazed. They saw high walls built to keep out invaders. They stared at the large temples, the houses, the busy shops, and the splendid royal palace. They may have envied the large farms of the nobles outside the walls. Independent cities form. As the map on the previous slide showed, cities grew up at different points along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These cities were separated by long distances, usually including a desert. This made it difficult for Sumerians in different cities to unite under one ruler. Each city acted as a state with its own special god or goddess, its own government, and eventually its own king. That is why they are called city-states. A brief tour of a Sumerian city. Some of the earliest cities arose in the region of Sumer. If you visited a Sumerian city, you'd spend much time in traffic jams. The streets were so narrow that carts could not get through them. People had to press themselves against the buildings to let donkeys squeeze by. Sumerian houses faced away from the crowded streets onto inner courtyards where families ate and children played. On hot nights, people slept outdoors on their homes' flat roofs. Oil lamps supplied light for Sumerian homes. Clay pipes buried deep in the ground carried liquid waste away. Inventions like plumbing would not come to most other parts of the world for thousands of years. The public squares buzzed with activity. Merchants displayed goods in outdoor stalls, shouting out to passerbys to admire their goods. The streets filled with musicians, acrobats, beggars, and water sellers. Scribes wrote letters for those who could not read or write, for a price. Sumerian religion. A stranger coming to a Sumerian city would first notice a giant stone building at the center of the city. This was a ziggurat, the main temple to the gods of the city. Ziggurats were made of terraces, one on top of one another, linked by ramps and stairs. Some were more than 7 stories high. Here you will see the ramp and another ramp that led to the terrace at the top. The people of Sumer worshipped not one, but many gods and goddesses. At the top of the ziggurat was a temple. The Sumerians believed that gods descended to earth using the ziggurat as a ladder. The belief in many gods is called polytheism. To understand this word, break it up into its parts. Poly, a Greek word, means many. Theism refers to gods. Sumerian myths or stories about gods that explain people's beliefs warned that the gods would punish people who angered them. The myths also promised rewards to people who served the gods well. Sumerians made sure that their gods were properly cared for. Temple priests washed the statues of gods before and after each meal. Music sounded and incense burned as huge plates of food were laid before them. The god Anu was offered the following meal daily: 21 rams, 60 birds, 8 lambs, 3 ostrich eggs, 2 vessels of milk, 7 ducks, 2 bulls, 4 wild boars, 29 bushels of dates, 3 cranes, 1 bullock, 3 duck eggs, and 243 loaves of bread. The religious beliefs of the Sumerians give us an idea of what was really important to them. Notice the love of the city expressed in this Sumerian poem.
Behold the bond of heaven and earth, the city. Behold the kindly wall, the city. Its pure river, its dock where the boats stand. Behold its well of good water. Behold It's pure canal.
Unfortunately for Sumer, the wealth of the city-states became their downfall. Sumerian city-states fought with each other over land and especially the use of river water. Constant warfare weakened Sumer's rulers and exhausted its armies. Sumer was no longer a major power after 2000 BC. It fell to a northern rival, Babylonia, in 1759 BC. And here we can see Babylonia, where Sumer would be, and it was then conquered and made all part of Babylonia. So 2 questions I would like you to think about as we wrap up this section. 1, what geographic features helped civilizations develop in Mesopotamia? And 2, how did Mesopotamia become a center of trade? You should be able to answer those questions after viewing this video. We'll see you in class tomorrow.